Hello, my name is Josiah Bilsland, and I'm here for this interview. Interesting question. Well, when I was 13, I tried my first cup of coffee. It was black, it was the way that my dad drank it, and though it was a bit too bitter for my 13-year-old tongue, which was just a little too accustomed to sweets to appreciate it, it did start a lifelong curiosity with the drink, coffee. I eventually found myself as a partner at Starbucks. It was here I began to learn the different processes that created coffee, the different techniques that were used to bring about the best taste and texture. I also learned how to bring and provide consistent and effective, meaningful experiences for customers. I also learned how to effectively work with others and manage interpersonal conflicts in a way that not only helps bring the best experience for the customers, but also the coworkers that I'm working with. And it's thanks to my coworkers and my manager that I was able to learn so much. And now I hope to be able to bring what I learned there here. Another interesting question. Well, I would say my greatest strengths are my ability to care for others effectively and my willingness to serve others. I want others to know that they're cared for. All throughout high school, all throughout school, I knew so many people that didn't receive that type of care at home. And because of that, because of my experiences there, I want to ensure that through my interactions with others that they know that they are cared for. And though I'm unsure if they'll feel that throughout the rest of their day, I want to make sure that at least in their interactions with me, that is the case. My willingness to serve. Well, that actually leads into a bit of how I provide the care for others. I enjoy serving people. I enjoy anticipating needs and fulfilling them. That's very useful with customers because often customers have needs that often go unheard because, for one, they're unanticipated, as well as they're often just disregarded. The customer may be too nervous to mention something, but instead, by anticipating the need and providing it then, they feel as if they're cared for. Now, my weaknesses. I'd say my biggest weaknesses come from my social limit and my lack of experience crafting regional drinks. I am from Georgia, and for this job I'd be moving to Missouri. Though I do enjoy people, I really love caring for them, and I really love serving them, I do have a social limit, and sometimes I reach it, but I try very carefully to ensure that this is not the case. I try to balance out as much as I can to ensure that does not happen. Though, sometimes it does, and when it does happen, I have to work to ensure that I give myself some time to restart, and that might just be I focus entirely on crafting drinks rather than actively talking to customers. And my coworkers are able to pick up my slack normally in that area, or rather, it's not slack at all, but rather I'm able to use that recovery time to focus entirely on making high quality drinks. Regional drinks. Well, I am from Georgia, and though it is going to be a temporary weakness of not knowing how to make the regional drinks, it will be a weakness nonetheless. Oh, yes, another interesting question. Well, any candidate can know how to make coffee. In fact, most already know how to. They may have worked at other coffee shops, they may have worked at another Starbucks. After you've learned the proportions and you learn how to make coffee, it's not entirely hard to maintain that understanding. But instead, what I do offer is the ability to make sure that the customer's experience is their best experience. I do this by attending to their needs. These needs might be emotional or situational. I learn their names, I attempt to learn their orders, especially if they come in frequently. I do my best to personalize their experience the best that I can. I also have the ability to make my coworkers feel valued for their efforts. I have a firm belief that when people give true effort, it should be rewarded. And that's no different with my customers and with my coworkers. I like to give them genuine encouragement for when they do something. I want their effort to be rewarded. I want to be able to offer that not only for the people I work with, but also for the people that I serve. Yes. Well, the first is that I'm very detail oriented. I enjoy fixing the small things to make sure that the whole is correct. An example of this can be found when making drinks. Rather than skipping the sides, rather than maybe going around standard because another way might be faster, I go through each and every step the best that I can to make sure that the drink is crafted perfectly for the customer. The second is that I'm a fast learner. I, like most individuals, I don't like to make the same mistake twice, and I go out of my way to ensure that that doesn't happen. Instead of simply sitting in my own disappointment, my own sadness that I did fail once, I might take a little extra time. I'll stay up a little later at night studying a new recipe, because though I may not have been able to make it perfectly the first time, I want to ensure that the next time I can do just that. The third is that I treat customers like individuals. I know many of my coworkers have fallen into a trap of viewing customers as an idea. Not as people, but an idea that's unchanging. Often they'll come in and they'll view people the same regardless of their situation. Whether it be a customer that's frustrated and might want to take out their anger on a worker, or someone who's very sweet and simply wants a little encouragement before starting or at the end of their day. Well, I offer to not only be able to take and view customers as individuals, but also be able to share this viewpoint with others. Most aren't aware that they're doing this, but rather it's something they simply fallen into. So I offer the ability to share this knowledge and wisdom with others. So. Another great question. Well, to tell you the truth, what I'm most proud of isn't some grand accomplishment. It's not something that I accomplished after so many tiring tasks, but rather it was the small successes. It is the small successes that I find throughout my days, that I have found throughout each day, whether it be last week, the week before that, this last month, this last year. It's the small accomplishments that I find throughout the day that I really value. And these take different forms, whether it's the genuine smile that I've earned after giving a customer the best experience that I can, whether it is in my free time I read a book and I finish it, whether it is I'm able to stay a bit longer during boxing practice, and I'm not only able to learn a new move, but also learn it with somebody else. I find that is a great accomplishment, and I value it greatly. It is the smaller things that I am the most proud of. Oh, yes, Starbucks gave me many opportunities to work under pressure, almost every single day. At the beginning and the end of most people's work days, they'll come to Starbucks. And because of that, there are cars that are almost always lined up around the building. Well, to effectively deal with this surplus of customers, people must move effectively and efficiently to ensure that the products are made and distributed as quickly as possible without allowing the customer's experience to suffer. An example of me being in this situation is that I am often on the window, and what that means is that I not only have to take orders from the ordering sign, but also I give out orders. I take payment at the window, and you have to alternate. Due to this and due to the surplus, you have to be very efficient. You have to be very careful, not to get tripped up. You have to be very focused while doing so. And so from this, I make an effort to keep as calm as possible. While doing this, I am able to make sure that the customer feels valued without sacrificing efficiency or productivity. I am able to make sure that not only were the customers cared for, but everything that was ordered was given efficiently and effectively. Oh, yes. Well, I have attempted, and it's still in the process of starting a bus ministry that might end up happening in the coming year. I saw a need for reaching many of the disenfranchised in the city of Columbus, and I wanted to give them an opportunity to come to church. It's not something that may not always be awarded to them. It's something that I always grew up with, and I didn't recognize as a need until I started spending time with more people. Gas is expensive. It's not always easy to reach church on a Sunday morning. Also, people don't always feel that their needs are cared for, so why would they come if they don't really benefit anything from it? And so I wanted to find a way to make sure that people feel cared for and that they're able to get to church effectively. And so I began having meetings with those in the serve department at my church to see what could be done. After many meetings, a plan was created. But due to the resources and the manpower that this type of thing would need, timing is very important. So, we're waiting for the right time. There are a couple more events that have to take place before we could even start this. But as I wait, for this to go into fruition, I will end up taking the role of management for this. That just means that I ensure that the buses have drivers, that there are volunteers that can help, there are volunteers that can help reach and fulfill the needs, of the people that will be going onto the bus. My greatest failure. Yes. Well, my greatest failure actually comes from distancing myself from someone I was mentoring. My life got a little too out of balance, and I wasn't able to effectively mentor them when they needed it. They were a few years younger than me, and I wanted to help them avoid the pitfalls that I fell into when I was their age. So I took it upon myself to spend time with them, to ensure I gave them whatever help, whatever advice that I could offer them. But as my life grew a little bit more hectic, more went onto my plate, I wasn't able to balance everything correctly. And so I ended up distancing myself from them, and in moments where they really did just need some guidance, some help to help avoid any confusion, pitfalls that life might bring, or that advice, wisdom might be able to help them avoid, I just couldn't help them. And it was due to this that I had to learn. After some time, after I fixed many of the issues that caused the unbalance in the first place, I began mentoring again, but I did it with a newfound wisdom. I used it as a lesson, and from this lesson I learned to make sure that even when things fall out of balance, I must ensure I still prioritize the things that need to be attended to. In doing so, I can ensure that things of great value to me are not neglected, because they shouldn't be. Yes, well, last year I was working as a lifeguard at a campground. Most of my co-workers were teenage girls. It's a lifeguard, a bit older, but as expected with many of these teenagers, teenage boys try to get their attention, and they would do it a lot, very often. And though it was normally not ever an issue, because the girls, they knew they weren't supposed to engage unless, they were not working. They mostly just stayed focused on what they were trying to do, what they were They stayed focused on attending to the waters from which that they were guarding, making sure people weren't drowning, making sure people weren't fighting in the water, drowning each other. That's sometimes an issue. But one of the girls allowed the entertainment to distract her. She pretty much took her eyes off the water entirely. She was not watching the water like she was supposed to. I ended up having to watch the entirety of the pool, which was relatively large because of this. And so the first chance that I got, I went and I spoke to her about it. I spoke to her directly. I tried not to make her feel like I was attacking her in any way. I mentioned that she had been doing a fantastic job before this, but I did talk to her about this directly. I more or less reiterated the importance of what she was doing and why she can't do what she did. And she understood it. And she never ended up doing it again, never had to have another conversation about it, and everything was fine from there. And it was because of this interaction that the waters were able to continue and maintain their safety. And lastly, number 10, a goal that I am most proud of. Well, this goal is one that I achieved relatively recently, at least within the last year. And though it seems somewhat simple, it was very large in meaning to me. And it was when I finished my first large philosophy book. It was entirely new territory to me. Yet someone allowed me to borrow their book. There were two of them. And they did so because they saw potential in me that I did not yet see. It wasn't easy to finish. The entire experience was entirely unfamiliar to me. I was not used to reading just mostly academic books. There were many words that I was unfamiliar with. I never encountered the writing style. But despite these difficulties, I didn't quit. Instead, I would go to the library every single day for hours, reading, and often I'd have to reread the same text twice, 3 times, maybe 4, before I could understand, because I'd have to look up words, or even sometimes the way that it was written, it was just so unfamiliar. Sometimes it's Old English, often it's translated from another language, and so you have to really take your time to make sure you're understanding what you're reading. But as time went on, I slowly began to notice that I had made some progress in the book. And I also noticed that I was able to understand what I was reading much easier. And the more I read, the more that this was fulfilled. And from that, I could see the distance I had traveled while climbing this mountain. And it inspired me to continue with more discipline. Before I knew it, I had finished it. To my surprise, it was just the beginning. It was just the first book. I was then given, which was the second book, a much larger book. And the process began to repeat once more. But I knew it was a mountain that I was able to climb. I knew it was possible to climb it. I just needed to be persistent, and I knew I had to do it, regardless of how I might have been feeling for the day. This is one of the goals that I'm most proud of achieving, and I look forward to achieving many more like it in the future. Well, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to the potential of future interviews. You have my contact information. Thank you very much. Bye.